So if someone came to me and they gave me an option, I could either lose all of my network, everybody that I've built relationships with over the last 20 years, people I've done deals with, investors, partners, clients. I could lose all of that network. Nobody remembers me. When I call, they're not going to pick up the phone. I'm completely starting from scratch. Or I could lose all of my money and have zero of that, zero of the portfolio. None of that is there. Which would I give up first? And the honest truth is the money. And there are a couple of reasons. And was having a beer with a buddy last night that reminded me of just how important your portfolio of connections are in order for you to be successful, especially in this space. And so I wanted to talk about that. Number one, why is it important? And number two, how do you build it? So let's talk about why it's important. And my buddy story is a great example. So I have a friend. He was in Dominican Republic, had invested in some real estate there, and he's someone who hasn't done a lot of entrepreneurial things, hasn't been an investor a really long time. He worked for a long time and saved up money, and now he has this money and is looking to make it work for him so that he can live very comfortably into retirement. And had a deal that went horribly wrong in Dominican Republic, lost a lot of money dealing with attorneys and all this stuff. It just turned out really, really bad. And then came to Colombia. And, we're talking about, my hotel deal, which is actually going even beyond any level of expectation that I had initially. And we're talking about visa. And it was interesting because there was a stark contrast in both of those scenarios. So first of all, he has been coming to Colombia for a couple of years, met some folks, had a connection or introduction to an attorney, paid that attorney some money. That attorney just took the money and did not do any work for him to get his visa. Went to another attorney, which had some very good, legitimate reasons. There's some geopolitical things that are going on. If you're familiar with what's going on in Venezuela, which is horribly, horribly sad, and just such a rough situation. And what's happened is there's been an influx of visa applications that have come to Colombia, and that's led to just them being backed up and that whole thing. And so he gave money to the next guy. The next guy seemed more legitimate, but he just wasn't willing to work hard enough to get the person's visa to the front of the line. I was just like, hey, there's nothing I can do. I did the work, so I'm keeping the money, but kind of good luck. And so we're talking about this, and just it is a complete contrast to my two experiences that are along the same lines. I invest in a hotel. It's doing exceedingly beyond my expectations. He had done a similar deal that was supposed to turn into an Airbnb. It went horribly wrong. I've got an attorney who's dealing with the same issues as of his attorney with the Venezuelans that are coming in, but it's just going above and beyond. Like, hey, we can fly to Bogota together. We can do this and all these options. Whereas his attorney is just like, hey, too bad. Didn't work. My guy's like, hey, I'll continue working. I don't care how long this is going to take. You don't have to pay me for any of these additional hours. I'm going to take care of you. And the stark contrast in both of those is just network. When I got introduced to the hotel deal, it was someone within my network where there's accountability with the folks that are in that network. My person that made that introduction, like, hey, this guy, treat this guy like my brother. If something happens to him, it's going to be like it's happening to me, and we're all going to have a problem. Or the introduction to the attorney, it's like, hey, it's going to be a very big deal if you don't treat this person as well as possible. And it's a powerful thing because if you have a strong network, there's going to be some connection to whatever you need on the planet Earth. If you get into a place where you don't know somebody, if your network is not just a lot of people. And that's where, on this channel, I talk about the fact, like, I'm not looking to have the biggest YouTube channel. I talk about Goldman Sachs having 80,000 followers on Instagram. They don't need a bunch of random followers. Their connections are in real life, and it's with people with real power, with real money, and that's where you want to focus. Like, you want deeper, deeper, deeper connections, not more connections. And we're in a world right now where everybody wants more connections, and that's not it's just not nearly as valuable. Yeah, you can get Fashion Nova to pay you a little bit of money because you have more and more and more connections. But if you have deep connections, you could find some investors and buy Fashion Nova, and that is the difference. Deep connections lead to super incredible life changing deals. More connections lead to a quick paycheck, and everybody's so focused on this quick paycheck. I want to get you guys focused on deep connections. So how do you start to build these connections? Number one is creating and giving value. People underestimate the fact that you can offer somebody that is in a powerful position something, no matter where you are in your life. And it could be the person that's in your city that other people aren't paying attention to. And you just go and say, hey, I will do whatever it takes to kind of help you. I'm looking to learn. I'm looking to build a relationship. I don't want money from you. I don't want a lot of your time. Send me to do whatever you need. And, I want to give you value because I want to build my network. And you let them know up front that that's what you want to do, and you want to be able to provide value to them because you want to build a relationship with them that is long term. One of the things that I'm a big fan of is what Goldman Sachs has as their mantra about greed, and it's about being long term greedy. That's what they call it. They call it long term greedy. And it's literally the difference between what I described in that Fashion Nova example. What they want to do is build a relationship with clients, with partners, with investors. It's going to be for the long haul. And there are so many real life examples of how they do that. One of them, which is discussed, is because a CEO brought it out. It wasn't Goldman, touting his own horn, but there was a CEO of a company who basically went to Goldman, and he was a client. He said, "Hey, I got this division. I want you guys to sell that division, and we'll take the money. You guys will get your fee and whatever." So Goldman goes in, and at the same time, this same CEO went to a couple other banks, Lehman, which is now no longer around, and I think one more. So they go to them and said, "Hey, we want you to sell this division." Well, the other two banks came back, and the other two banks said, "Hey, this is how much we're going to charge you to sell it. We got this interested buyer. We got that interested buyer. Let's get this done." Goldman came back and said, "Hey, we basically have looked at everything, and we think that if you do this and this division will grow, and it's going to be a little while, maybe 2 years, 3 years from now, but we think that you can grow it and you're going to get more money, and this is the ROI that you're going to have. You put this amount in here, and this is going to turn out to be a bigger win for you." This is huge, guys. The fact that, and we look at investment banks like, oh, they're greedy, and they are, but it's long-term greedy. And, I think that's what builds really great relationships, because everybody has to make money, but it's who's trying to get the quick buck and who's really building relationships for the long term. And later, the analyst who worked on that case actually talked about publicly the fact that he had gone to his boss and said, "Hey, I've got the buyers in place. We're going to make this huge fee off of selling this division and da da da." And his boss, who also stood to make money as a partner because of that, said, "Wait a minute, our job isn't for us to figure out how to make money from our clients. Our job is to make sure this is the right thing for the company long term. And even the analysts, the junior analysts, like, oh, okay, like what? I thought I was here to try to make the firm as much money as possible. And he talked about there was this whole process where they did a bunch of work in order to come up with that idea. And this is the important thing to consider, and why in this space, it takes a different kind of thinking is, in order to even come up with that plan, it's more work than the opposite. To just say, hey, let's sell this and make money, you get paid, everybody's happy, and you move on. To say, hold up, let's do the research. Let's figure out how much they really could make. Let's come up with a way to present that to them and tell them. And this is all the work that's being done to go back to a client and say, hey, we actually realize we don't need to make money off of you. Now, the upside of that is you get the long-term reward. So of course, 3 years later, in this case, that division, actually, it was a little less than 3, it's about 2.5 years later, that division had doubled, just like Goldman expected. And who is the CEO going to come to? So now, a couple of years later, they're actually making more money than they were, than they would have. I'm sorry. They're actually making more money on their commission for selling that division. And they probably, as long as that CEO is the head of that company, they've got a client for life. Anything that company needs, he's going to Goldman Sachs because, and he's definitely not going to those other two investment banks that he had approached originally. So you build this relationship, and that's the attitude. If you can do that, you will build a network that's worth gold. And I feel like, especially in the future, one of the things we talk about is diversification. You want to get investments in different countries. You want to have, money in different countries. There are opportunities to make better returns in different places, in addition to being able to protect assets and just diversify and take advantage of growth. Growth in America was incredible. That's why a lot of the robber barons were wealthier than Jeff Bezos is today. It's because the wealth in the 1800s was just outrageous because we were in a super growth time period. And now there are other countries that are in that same time period. And it's almost like going back in time where it's easier to predict. In the US, we're trying to figure out, okay, what's the future? In other countries, they're going through what we were doing 50 years ago. And so it's easier to say, hey, I think that a restaurant is going to do amazing here. I think that a hotel, based on what's going on, in the development that's going on, it's going to do amazing here. And so you're able to get in on the ground floor. But just like my buddy and his experience, it takes having relationships and building a network that allows you to get into the right things and make the right moves so that you're not just throwing money into the wind, which none of us want to do because we're not out here trying to make it rain. We're trying to get great ROI on our money. And it takes a network to do that. So in order to make the money, it's crucial. But then in order to keep the money and keep it earning money, you need that same trusted network. So I want you guys to take the Goldman Sachs method of building long-term connections, increasing your portfolio of connections, and having a network that honestly allows you to land in any city on the planet Earth and be able to connect with somebody that's going to be a trusted individual you can do deals with, meet other people, and make things happen. And that's I talked about my first experience in Costa Rica and trying to look at real estate and figure out what was going on. That's been a goal of mine since then. I want to have a network that is a strong one. So thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment. Love getting y'all's feedback. And thanks so much for supporting the channel. It does not go unappreciated.